Welcome to Roy's Retro Reviews, the review show where I review older video games because I want to. This week's review is for Maximum Carnage. This was released back in 1994 for the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo Entertainment System. So this is back in the day when Spider-Man games tended to be not terrible. They still weren't great, but not as bad as, some of the more recent entries into the Spider-Man franchise outside of, I can't remember the names of the two more recent ones that are actually semi-decent. But anyway, Maximum Carnage was really the first big names Marvel game in terms of Spider-Man to also get a T rating. Everything else back then was getting E's. That was comic book related. Maximum Carnage is really the first T. And I like Marvel. I'm more of a Marvel than a DC person. So, and I've always liked Spider-Man, mostly Venom, just because he looked awesome. Over the time, I've actually cared more about Spider-Man, but Carnage is still the coolest villain, which is why I really still like Maximum Carnage in terms of its material. However, the game is held back by a lot of other things, so like usual, I'll go into my past with the game and then into my present playthrough. So I actually didn't play Maximum Carnage when it first came out. In 94, I would have been, 5 years old, and I wasn't able to play T-rated games for quite a long time, so that gives you an idea. I don't think I got to play this game until at least 99, so like 4 or 5 years after the fact. But I was a big comic book fan, mostly Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men, and those are some of my favorite superheroes. And I mostly watched the animated series for Spider-Man, Batman, and X-Men. A lot of X-Men. But I wanted to play Maximum Carnage, and I eventually did. It has two of my favorite characters in it, which are Venom and Carnage, and I wanted to, I heard you got to play as Venom, so that was always a big selling point for me back then. The game played a lot like other games I'd been playing at the time: Double Dragon, Battletoads, the Mighty Morphin Power Ranger games, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and other side-scrolling beating 'em ups. And I really like that genre, and Maximum Carnage filled that little love of mine, and it was a lot of fun. It had a lot of fan service with kind of summons with Captain America, Black Cat. That's really the only two I really knew at the time. And it was kind of cool to see, those heroes show up, and the game was fairly difficult, so I never got too far. In fact, I think the first in the video is about as far as I ever made it, just because the game is fairly difficult. And I think it's inflated difficulty, which I'll talk about in my playthrough. But, it was a lot of fun. I did enjoy playing it. I thought it was a very fun game, and it had, like I said, had some of my favorite characters in it. Maximum Carnage is, definitely a side-scrolling beat-em-up. However, I think it's probably one of the worst side-scrolling beat-em-ups that came out during this time period. Now I haven't gone back to it. Partly because, once again, the inflated difficulty. You can only take like 4 hits before you lose a life, which is kind of dumb, and it's really easy to get hit because you get attacked from both sides a lot, so you have to kind of manage that. And just, one hit, you're done. And then when you get to boss fights, there's 2 of them, and then you have to dodge, and it gets really complicated. I mean, you could beat almost all the fights without taking damage, but one hit takes out a fourth of your life, and health items don't come along that often. The other problem I have with it, unlike Double Dragon and some of the other side-scrolling beat-em-ups, mostly like Streets of Rage, is there's not a whole lot of items to pick up and throw. That's one of my favorite things about side-scroll beat-em-ups, is there's usually tons of things in the environment to pick up and throw. The game only has like maybe 1 or 2 items per level, and you're just backtracking these same areas. And as with all beat-em-ups at the time, the other problem I have with the genre in general, especially Maximum Carnage, is the lack of abilities and moves you could do. You pretty much have punch, grab, throw, and then your you have a web pull and a kind of a stun and a block, and that's really it. And this is my problem with most beat-em-ups at the time, is there's just not a lot of variety, so it's a lot of doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And this game has another issue with at least reusing like the same basic 4 or 5 enemies, including villains. So just kind of, I think, too long. And once again, that's just the time period, as well as just, I think most beat 'em ups just reuse their assets instead of changing up what kind of people you fight. I mean, on the whole, those are kind of all the negatives. On the good side, it's a decent Spider-Man game, not the greatest. I still had fun playing it, just for the nostalgia, as well as, like I said, it's still fun playing as Spider-Man and Venom. Although I totally forgot they had to get so far in the game with Spider-Man in order to start playing as Venom. I totally forgot about that part. But it's a definitely, I think a fun game. And if you like the comic, which I've never read, this game does feature a lot of the panels and follows the comic apparently pretty well. So there you go. But Maximum Carnage is, I think, still one of the better Spider-Man games, but it's definitely nowhere near be the best beat 'em up. In fact, I think the game on whole is average in the gameplay department. Maximum Carnage is probably one of the better superhero games, because I think most superhero games have gone backwards in terms of quality, except for like Arkham series and a couple of other rare comic book games that are actually good. Most of them have been DC, which is kind of sad in my opinion. Not because I don't think DC Comics is good, because I like Marvel a little bit better, but I always enjoy a good DC game. But anyway, so Maximum most comic book heroes either come out as bad as Superman or mediocre as Maximum Carnage for the most part these days, and you don't get those really good comic book games. Anything higher than that these days, but there are a couple of really good ones back in the past. But anyway, so Maximum Carnage. So I'm going to go into the verdict for Maximum Carnage, and unlike the main series where I do a buy rent pass for my reviews, this review series for retro reviews, I use what's called the Nostalgia Factor thingy, which is a verdict system based off of 4 verdicts. Based on my past and present playthroughs of the game. Classic is, I think the game was good back then. It's still good. It's held up well over time. It's fun. Everybody should go try to find a copy of these games or download or whatever you can do to play these games. I think they're worth your time and are definitely some of the better games to ever come out. Second rating is Fond Memories. These are games that I liked playing as a kid. They were fun. Playing it today, though, the game's usually full of holes and not the greatest thing on the planet. For whatever reason. The opposite is the next one, which is Why Didn't I Like It? Which are games I didn't like as a kid, but I'm playing now and I love them. I think it's a lot of fun, and for some reason it just didn't hit me when I was a kid when playing these games. And the last one is Terrible of Terribles. These games are games that you should never, ever, ever have to see or play. They're old. Burn them if you find a copy. So they are erased from the gaming history books because they're just that bad. Maximum Carnage obviously gets a Fond Memories. Like I said, I enjoy playing the game. It's a fun little kind of guilty pleasure game. It's not the greatest game on the planet, but they're fun. So that's it for this review. Next retro review will be in 2 weeks. Next review will actually be for Tokyo Kwamity, which I'm working on currently. That should be up by Monday, which is the 13th. So until then, check out rule3.com for all the news and reviews and all the other fun stuff. So there's also going to be a starting probably Wednesday or Thursday of this coming week. Is going to be my Mortal Kombat 10 Let's Play, which will be me playing the game on the hardest difficulty and seeing if I can actually make it through it, as well as doing the Challenge Tower and some other fun things. And I'll do that probably for a couple of weeks until I get tired of Mortal Kombat 10, which will probably never happen because I like Mortal Kombat, unless the game's really bad. But anyway, so check that out when that happens next week. Make sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter. Please, if you have the time and feel the charity in your heart, go to our Patreon site and donate some money to the site. All the money goes back into the site to firstly get giveaways going back again, and then some other fun things like getting reviews out faster, more Roy's retro reviews, a couple other shows that I want to do, but I need a little bit of funds to get the games going, or get the videos going. So please check out the Patreon if you have the time. You can get a link to our website or just go to patreon.com and look up Roy Mannon. Yeah, and that's it. So until next week, always remember to trust in the rule of 3.